The member for Warringah.
I seek leave to move the amendment as circulated in my name.
Is leave granted?
Leave granted.
Leave is granted. The member for Warringah has the call.
I move the amendment as circulated in my name. This bill ensures that streaming services contribute fairly to the Australian screen sector, supporting our stories and our creative workforce. And I want to start by thanking the Minister and the Government for its engagement and acting upon this long-standing commitment to, in fact, protect the screen industry. And I appreciate the Government's engagement on the bill and their willingness to discuss concerns that have been raised by both local constituents and members of the industries and members of the screen industry as well as streamers. I've met with a number of streamers. In particular, I have Stan located in my electorate and have met with a number of others. We know the sector requires investments across culturally significant types, including drama, children, documentary, arts or education content. And these different types of content help to define Australia's identity. They tell our stories, they reflect our lived experience, and they create shared cultural touchstones. We know drama gives us the stories that last, whether it's Mystery Road, Newsreader, Total Control, Love My Way, Black Snow. These are shows that Australians gather around and remember for decades to come. But we know that despite quotas being in place for commercial broadcasters, investment in drama, documentary and children's content has been significantly failing. Children make up almost 20% of the population. They require specific content that reflects their world, one that is age-appropriate, educational and distinctly Australian. So it's critical for their early education, social development and building a sense of belonging. Yet the children's sector has been amongst the hardest hit by declining investment. The amendment that I've circulated seeks to make very clear the objects and seeks to amend the objects to make very clear the intent, which I understand has been indicated by the government, that the investment and this requirement on streamers be across all types of content, from drama to documentary to children's content. And so by amending the objects clause with a new Part 8C of the bill to clarify the intention of the bill to ensure that streaming services contribute to the development, production and dissemination of Australian stories by making balanced genre investments across all types mandated in the bill, including drama, children's programming, documentary, arts programming and educational content. This amendment would embed the bill's purpose explicitly into the legislation. It would ensure that ACMA's oversight and compliance aligns with the overall intention of the bill, and this is significant given the broad discretion in the bill for ACMA to make the rules. ACMA's oversight needs to align with Parliament's clear expectation that investment be balanced across all culturally significant genres and that Australian stories remain central to our screen environment. The bill is a really important step to guaranteeing Australian stories and voices on our screens. It recognises that investment in a broad range of culturally significant areas are important for the strength of our national identity. However, we need to safeguard that intent. The framework must be implemented with clarity, accountability and ambition. We can't afford to get this wrong, and I've heard from the Minister that there will be the review period, and that is in 4 years' time we will assess whether the spending has been balanced across all types of content. But when the screen industry employs over 60,000 Australians, it drives a huge amount around creative export, shapes how Australians see ourselves in our place and in the world. At a time where investment is so critical in these areas and it's been falling so dramatically, this amendment just seeks to make sure that it is clear around the intention that this investment should be across all types of content. We know the stories matter. They deserve to be told, to be seen, to be supported by a system that values their contribution to our economy, our identity and our shared future. And whilst I know that speeches can be meaningful and explanatory memorandums are meaningful in assisting ACMA in assessing, especially in 4 years' time when the review occurs, I think it is very important to give a very clear direction to streamers of the objects and the intention of the government in this legislation of wanting there to be investment across all sectors. We can't just assume it will be done. By making it explicit in the objects, we make it clear their expectation of investment across all areas. I had wanted to move amendments around specific sub-quotas, but I understand the legal difficulties around that. But that is why I submit that this objects amendment is the best way forward.
The question is that the amendments be agreed to. The Leader of the House.
Thanks very much, Speaker. I want in a similar way to what I said earlier, acknowledge the member for Warringah for an engagement that has been going on for some years now on this particular issue, and it's important. It's important for that to be acknowledged for the commitment that's been shown on this issue. As I said earlier, we're not in a position to be amending the bill at all, but if I can refer specifically to the issue of the objects proposal. You could take it either way in terms of what's being said, so I just think it's important that I clarify. In terms of the different subgenres, I do want to see, across the full suite of streaming businesses that are out there, to make sure that we end up getting the sort of diversity that's just been spoken about and that's reflected in the amendment. I don't, however, believe that it's essential for each individual streaming business to be providing that full range. There will be some streamers, for example, that decide that providing a serious level of children's content is important to them and they go down that path. There will be others who go down a specific path of seeking an audience that is deliberately aimed at not having children among their audience. And I wouldn't want us to be in a situation, a conversation about objects and what we're trying to achieve here, that left any ambiguity in terms of the government's position on that, which is that no matter who it is sitting on the lounge, we want Australian content in those different varieties that have been referred to be something that is available to them. But I certainly wouldn't want there to be an impression that the government was seeking to have a situation where every single streaming service had to provide the full range. Different levels of specialty is something that I think is a reasonable business model for them. But part of what the government is wanting to achieve here is across the full range of Australian content that people love, the same way as historically you could get it on free-to-air, on the public broadcasters and on cable television, that is guaranteed to be available on streaming content.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. The member for Warringah.
I thank the Minister for that clarification, but it does raise a pretty concerning red flag, because it does mean that sectors like documentaries, all children's content, could fall off the map completely over the next 4 years for the government having failed to, in fact, ensure that there is streaming investment in those sectors. Because what could very well result in this is a complete loss of those Australian stories from our screens because of decisions by international streaming companies to only focus on dramas. And then what will have happened is we will have failed, in fact, to protect through this legislation, to save Australian stories across the full gamut of what is required to support stories, the storytelling that is so important, but also that the cultural identity and why it is so essential that we continue seeing Australian content, that there is the importance of preserving the jobs and the industry in this sector, but there is also making sure that that diversity of content is made. And so what assurance then can the government give that those in sectors like children's and documentaries will not completely disappear over the next 4 years while we wait for the review period?
The Leader of Government.
Just very quickly, and I won't respond further, but just to say the situation we're in right now is there is no guarantee of anything. That's the situation we're in right now, and the purpose of the legislation is to start to get some guarantees where that is of the expenditure on Australian content.
The question is that the amendment be agreed to. All those that opinion say aye. To the contrary, no. I think the noes have it. Noes have it. The member